Oh, hello there. BLTD Extracast number 11. As I was telling my esteemed co-host before we got on the air, this is the fourth podcast I have done in a day. So I don't know if I'm going for like a world record or something, but stuff keeps happening and we're here to talk about it. But before we get into the news, I do want to bring in my co-host. He is at BJ Wilson WGR on the tweetbots, Brayton Wilson. How you doing today, my friend?
Oh, it's been quite the busy day, and I understand that you've had quite the busy day yourself.
I'm so tired right now, man. Like I don't want to complain like a little baby, but like, dude, holy hell. Like I drove to Buffalo, did 2 podcasts, drove back from Buffalo, edited and posted the podcast, which I'm still working on right now. And now we're here doing another podcast. But
well, you're working hard. That's what makes our site so great.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate that. But that's what we're here for. We're here to bring you the news, and we're here to bring you the
Sprots.
I guess the hashtag hot takes, Sprots, whatever you want to call it. Right now, just a quick run over of what's going on over at BLTDsports.com. Tonight there will be Extracast 9, which is myself and Sam Rodriguez. Extracast 10, which is myself, Sam Rodriguez, and Matthew Collar. Extracast 11, which is the one we're doing right now. Maybe BLTD 74, but that might be tomorrow. And then tonight I'm also going to post the AFC wildcard preview done by Derek Kramer. So it's going to be a very, very, very busy time here for the BLTD sports people.
Yeah, and I've even got something coming your way too. I've got a recap of the World Junior Championships that I'll hopefully have done for tomorrow. And then hopefully within the next few days, I will get the winter rankings for the 2016 NHL draft.
I'm pretty jacked up about this, man. We've got a lot of stuff going on here, and it's just not going to stop.
Yeah, with all these trades, it's only going to get busier.
I'll tell you what, today's is so weird because it's the most random day, January 6th. Just a couple days ago, we have GM saying that guys can't make trades, and now 2 big trades happen on one day. Plus, there was a big signing as well, which we'll also talk about because we're here, and that's what we talk about. We talk about Sprots and the hockeys and all that stuff. So, with that being said, why is it telling me? I said we can take questions, but it says the questions are disabled. I'm gonna get this. I'm so mad. Hold on a second. I need to figure this out. Because it says the chat has been disabled, but the chat has been, I have enabled the chat.
Oh, geez.
We try to do cool stuff here in Google Hangouts, holding us down. Like a butt. Like a hashtag butts.
Hashtag butts everywhere.
Yeah. So what we're going to start off with is I'll let you start off with the trade of Vincent Lecavalier to over to Los Angeles Kings while I try to get this question issue figured out.
Yeah, let's get you guys recapped here on the events that happened earlier today. So it all started out with a tweet from Leonard Lavoie. I can't remember what he is with. I believe he's with TVA. It's up in Canada. Yeah, TVA Sports in Montreal. He first sent out a tweet that said in French, of course, he said that the Flyers trade Vincent Lecavalier to the LA Kings. Then that was followed up minutes later by Bob McKenzie saying that Lecavalier and also Luke Schenn are going to LA. And then Darren Dreger followed that up with Jordan Wheel and a 3rd-round pick going back to Philadelphia. So things just kept flying in about this trade. And we've come to learn overall with this trade, Luke Schenn and Vinny Lecavalier go to LA. In return, the Flyers get Jordan Wheel, a 3rd-round pick. The Flyers will also retain the 50% of the contracts for both Luke Schenn and Vinny Lecavalier. Also, a little tidbit note is that apparently, according to Lecavalier's agent, this is the last season Lecavalier is going to play before he retires. So basically, he was thrown into this deal because he wants to win another Stanley Cup, and he feels that the LA Kings were the right choice for him to go. So,
and the great part about it too with LeCavalier is that he said he was going to retire, but never signed anything before the season or before he was dealt to the Kings. So maybe he'll stay for another year. Maybe he'll call it quits. Who knows? But it's a good move for LeCavalier, if nothing else, because he's been benched, I think, since November. I know Sam Rodriguez and I in Extracast number 9 talked about it because we actually came across the news today that LeCavalier was potentially considering voiding his current contract to go sign a new deal with the Western Conference team or with another team. Now it wasn't specifically Western Conference. It's just that a Western Conference scout had said right now at this point of his career, LeCavalier is probably a gooder third or fourth liner in the NHL, and he's going to get the shot to do that now. So we'll see if he can.
He's only played in 7 games this year, and he hasn't played since November 12th. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he still has anything left in the tank. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I know his game has kind of fallen off a little, but I certainly think that it's not a bad move for the Kings. I mean, it certainly can't hurt.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad deal at all. I think that it gives them just an extra little bit of offensive boost. But not only that, I think the Kings were looking to acquire a defenseman because they lost Matt Green to a long-term shoulder injury. I think that there's thoughts that he may not return for the rest of the season, and if he does return, it won't be until the playoffs. But they wanted to find a replacement for him, and I think it was Elliot Friedman that reported that the Kings were in talks with Buffalo to try and acquire Josh Georges.
Now, why you gotta ruin my my loaded question here? Damn it! I was ready to ask you. I was ready to ask you. I was about to be like, yeah, and you want to know? So I'm gonna try this again. Okay, you just go back to talking about defensemen, and I'll reset this up and we'll take it.
Okay. So, anyways, with Matt Green, he's got a long-term shoulder injury.
You want to know something?
Surgery.
You want to know something crazy? That's how I wanted to set it up. Thank you. Something crazy. When something happens in the National Hockey League, it's always about the Buffalo Sabres. You want to know how?
How?
Well, my buddy Brayton just told me that Elliot Friedman said that Josh Georges was in talks with the Kings, or Josh Georges was in play. He wasn't actually trying to trade himself. I don't think you can do that unless you're Jonathan Drouin. I think Jonathan Drouin is the only man who can actually trade himself, which he might do. He may do that sometime soon. But, I'm interested to see what happens now with Josh Georges because now we know – I mean, they're not saying he's on the trade block, but if they're trying to trade him to another team, a veteran team that needs a veteran defenseman, maybe we start to hear a little more on Josh Georges coming up the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, and if things start flying, that would be quite interesting. But the thing that I worry about most with trading Josh Georges is that who are you going to have to replace him in the lineup that's going to bring you quality play? I mean, yes, Buffalo's got, Carlo Koliakovo and Mike Weber waiting in the wings. They've also got Jake McCabe, who's here. When Mark Pezic comes back, it's going to create a log jam at defense. And Dan Bilesman said he doesn't like having 8 defensemen on the team at the same time.
That's what I wanted to ask you too, is that I wanted to see what you might think who would fill the role, because I mean, I thought maybe if you get rid of Georges, you probably bump up Bogosian with Ristolainen, and that's okay. But excuse me, Carlo Koliakovo can't crack the lineup for more than a few games at a time. Same with Mike Weber. Although when Mike Weber's in, he's been effective in small doses, but still, I mean, if they thought he was good, he would be playing, and he's been scratched more often than not or hurt more often than not. And it's getting to the point now where, I mean, does Tim Murray trade Josh Georges and have another trade up his sleeve? Or does he trade Josh Georges and maybe call up Chad Ruedel and take a look at Chad Ruedel? Because that's really all that I can think of right now. I can't think of anybody else in Rochester who maybe even near NHL ready. Or even
I can't either.
Yeah, or be worth the shot at this point.
Yeah, no, I don't think any I don't think any defenseman in Rochester is capable of being ready to play in the NHL right away. The only one that was Jake McCabe, and he's here.
Our friend Alec on Twitter is yelling at me for being nice to Mike Weber. So Mike, I'll just let you know, everybody, Mike Weber sucks. You should know that. He also submitted a question, which it wasn't even. He submitted a question, but it wasn't even a question that he submitted. It was more like a statement. He said if Tim Murray gets a second-round pick for Josh Georges, he's the greatest GM of all time.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even. What would you? There's a good question too, because we saw what. It kind of leads me to another question. If we saw what, it was a bigger deal, obviously, but we saw what Philadelphia got back in that trade. What do you think Josh Georges is even worth at this point?
I mean, Sabres traded him for a second rounder in this year to Montreal. Is he worth that now? I mean, he's definitely a valuable like 3, 4, 5, 6 guy for a contending team. If a team needs a left-handed shot defenseman that is reliable in the defensive end, I would say that, I don't know, maybe you could get a second rounder in return for him, because I mean the return for Shen and LeCavalier was decent.
I guess it always depends. It probably, sorry about that, Brayton. It all probably depends on just when you pull the trigger. I mean, 'cause like a lot of people were saying with Jonathan Drouin is, you would think that a deal like this would wait until the deadline, or with like Ryan Johansson, a deal like this would wait to the deadline. But at some point in time, when your hand has been forced, your value is going to start decreasing. And a lot of NHL people today, before all these trades went down, said Drouin is probably going to be dealt in the next 7 to 10 days because his value is going to be really no higher than it is now. And it's one of those things where we heard today that Buffalo wasn't. I know we're getting kind of off topic here, but Buffalo wasn't in on Jonathan Drouin. They said that the price for the Eastern teams is going to be a little higher, but it's one of those things where you're starting to see people on Twitter make sense of it, and they're all saying the same thing. People think, Drouin is not really that much of a guarantee like a Ryan Johansson. Like, what you're getting with Ryan Johansson, no doubt about it. You know what you're going to get with that kind of player, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But with Jonathan Drouin, what are you getting? You're getting a young hockey player with a lot of potential, but really that's it. So it may be something that's a little bit slower of a burn, but it's the trigger's gonna get pulled in that one soon.
Yeah, former 3rd overall pick in 2013. At first a lot of people thought he could go 2nd overall after Nathan McKinnon, but he went 3rd to Tampa Bay. But I mean, the thing that I like about Drouin is, he plays the puck well. He's got a decent shot. It's just, we haven't seen enough of him yet to really see how he can be at the NHL level. And I think that's what a lot of teams are hesitant at, is that, he's been in the league for nearly 2 years now, and he hasn't really shown all that much of, action on ice. On the ice, he hasn't shown what he can do as much. So I think a lot of teams are hesitant to pull the trigger because, there's not a lot of video out there on him. It'll be very interesting to see what Drouin will garner in a trade. Anything like what we saw earlier today, I'm not entirely sure, though. I really don't think that it's going to be as much as what we saw in the other trade that we saw.
Now, another good follow on Twitter, Max Marco at Marco FZN Futures points out that because honestly, I'll be completely honest with everybody listening right now, whether you're listening live or listening in the future, I don't really know much about the Amerks this year because I didn't really make a point to pay a lot of attention, unfortunately, because I've been super busy. So when I look at the Amerks roster, I'm kind of like, oh, that's who's in Rochester. That's how it's been this year. So you look at guys like Matt Donovan, who could get called up, Bobby Sanguinetti, not guys that you're going to invest a lot of your future in, but if you need to kind of push everybody up a spot and you have an empty spot, you can bring a guy like Sanguinetti, Matt Donovan up. Like I said, Chad Ruedel can come up. But at this point, I mean, we all think Tim Murray's going left and he goes right. Nobody suspected before today that Josh Georges was potentially on the table. And then we get the word across that from multiple sources that Josh Georges was in play with the Kings before they got Luke Shen. And that's another thing too. I really wonder, because this just hit me, this logical thought just hit me. I wonder if Murray was asking a lot for Georges, which forced them to move on to LeCavalier, or to Shen with LeCavalier.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
We know GMs talk all the time. They may not get anywhere, but we know they talk a lot. So it may be a situation where, and this is all just speculation, but it makes sense, where you're talking to Tim Murray and Murray's talking to LA, and he says, I want this. And they say, well, that's a little high. And then, you have LA talking about LeCavalier, and they say, well, what would you want for Shen? How can we make that deal happen? Because that happens. We know that happens all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, with Josh Georges, I mean, his game is more of a defensive style of play, and with the Sabres, he's garnered a lot of minutes, and I think that Tim Murray thinks that since he's been playing a lot of minutes and that, he can throw his body around, he blocks a lot of shots. I mean, he's got 90 block shots this year. That's a lot. Nearly 30 more than the next closest player. But I mean, the fact is that he's getting the ice time. He's getting the chance to prove that he can play every game. I mean, he has played all 40 games this year. He's stayed healthy. I think Murray's trying to drive the value up. I think he sees Georges as a possible, as a possible second round pick, or maybe even a younger defenseman in return. I don't know. I just, there's no way of telling what Josh Georges can garner. I mean, the only way you can tell is that he garnered a second round pick from Buffalo when we traded from nearly 2 years ago.
And we all know that defensemen or veteran defensemen, teams look for guys like Josh Georges closer to the deadline. So we'll see. We will certainly see what happens as the deadline draws closer. I'm just reading another statement. I'm gonna yell at some Twitter people. Alec does not understand. He's sending me statements, not questions. But I'll point this out. I will allow this on the air. It's okay. He says, when discussing Drouin, you have to remember Corey Conacher, a player who showed some promise playing with Stamkos early on and fell off a cliff when he got traded to Ottawa. Drouin also has a high rate of secondary assists, which aren't repeatable. So that's a good point. But like I said, that's another thing where you don't really know what you're getting. And like I said, we'll touch on that a little more when we get to the biggest trade of the day, and when we talk the last trade. But it's kind of like, yeah, Drouin can become this guy, but he could also be that guy. So he could be really good or really bad. And do you want to be the GM that gives up a lot for the guy who is really bad? Now, if you have someone who can put him with, and kind of do like what the Sabres did with Luke Adam with Pominville and Vanek, maybe. But I mean, we all know that Luke Adam just wasn't a good hockey player and he was playing over his head. That's like the time today I've talked about that. I have not talked about Luke Adam in forever, and I've mentioned that like 5 times today. So I'm on a
Luke Adam was just one of those guys that thought he was the best hockey player in the world, and he got way over himself. And then when he went to Rochester, he was just thinking, well, I should be up in the NHL, so I'm not going to give a shit. Where it's like, if you want to get back in the NHL, you better start playing your you-know-what off, so you can get back there.
Exactly. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is not a trade, but a signing, a very big signing that's been rumored for a while now, been some rumblings, and the trigger has finally been pulled. The Washington Capitals have signed forward Mike Richards to a 1-year, $1 million contract. Now, this move, no matter what happens, I think is a very, very, very solid risk to take for the Washington Capitals. It's a move that is going to solidify their bottom 6, which is a role that Mike Richards probably will flourish in because it's less ice time. I mean, his scoring will go down. There's no doubt about it, but he will be playing a ridiculously big role. So he'll be able to, I guess, put more into that smaller role, if you will. Kind of like what we saw earlier this season with Cody Franzen. When he's playing a ton, he was crappy. When he played a little less, he was better. So maybe less is more in the case of Mike Richards, and I think so. I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago on our redraft with Mike Richards. We mentioned the potential of him signing with the team soon. Apparently, Justin Williams spoke very highly of Mike Richards, and the Capitals feel that he could be a piece of the puzzle in their quest for a Stanley Cup. And I mean, I don't see why not. He still has some talent. He's still a good hockey player. Obviously, he's lost a step or two, but I don't think it's a bad move for the Capitals.
No, I don't think it's a bad move at all. I mean, you look at Mike Richards. He's a very good two-way centerman. He can win you important draws in the offensive zone. He can win defensive zone draws to get you out of a jam. He gets to the net. He scores goals. He's gritty. He's not afraid to drop the gloves. I mean, it's not, as you said, it's not a high-risk sort of, acquisition for the Capitals, because the fact is that he'll probably play third or fourth line center minutes. I mean, you got Nicholas Backstrom as your top line center, obviously. Then you got guys like, Brooks Like, you got Evgeny Kuznetsov. You've got Marcus Johansson, who can play some center for you. But, I mean, the fact is that it's a perfect signing for Washington. You get a big-sized guy, and you can put him on the line with, just about anybody, because he can play physical. He can feed guys pucks. He can finish plays. Draft. I mean, that's a huge reason why he was drafted so high by the Flyers when he was taken back in 2003. He was effective with Los Angeles, and he was playing very well with Philadelphia before his trade to LA. So, as long as he's cleaned up his act and as long as he's going to be able to stay out of trouble, I think that the Capitals have found themselves a steal, basically, just out of a guy that has not played in a while. But still, I mean, if he plays up to where he was playing a few years ago, Washington could be a serious contender for the Cup this year.
And it's one of those things too, where it's the Capitals have already came out and said, we support him 100%. We're more than happy to stand behind him, which is something obviously the Kings weren't going to do,
right?
Because we all know the Kings are a terrible franchise. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But the Capitals are going to stand behind Mike Richards, and it's a low risk, high reward move. Where what? It may even be something where he comes in and scores 10 points in the last 30 games or something, or 40 games, and he may not even have that much of an impact. But it may just be a thing where he's there helping out the rest of the team, and he's making a difference in other ways aside from being on the score sheet. So he may be able to assist his team a lot more than just being a fantastic point scorer, which, like I said, we don't think that's going to happen. But his penchant for having Stanley Cup victories, and
I mean, just imagine what he could do if he centered a line like with Tom Wilson, and when whether Michael Latta comes back, or like Michael Latta when he comes back, or even if they want to try and put Tom still out there, even though he just got suspended, I mean, he could make Tom Wilson into the first round player that he was drafted for. I mean, right now, Tom Wilson, was drafted in the first round, and he's been more of a scrapper than anything, than a scorer. But I mean, what happens if Mike Richards takes Tom Wilson under his wing and makes him into a even bigger threat? I mean, makes him into, I wouldn't say like a Milan Lucic type of player, but I mean, a guy that can play physical and get under guys' skin, but can be an offensive weapon and put the puck in the net when needed.
I mean, it's one of those things where you put better talent around lesser talent, and usually they get better. We've seen that happen before. And Mike Richards, I mean, like I said, we don't want to sit here and put the guy in the Hall of Fame or anything right now, but he has shown a penchant to be a very good hockey player. And it's like I said, it's a low risk, high reward move. If it doesn't pay off, boo-hoo. You gave a guy with a lot of talent a shot and it didn't pay off. You lost probably couple $100,000, because it's $1 million, but I'm assuming it's prorated. So it's not even going to be $1 million, so it's not a big deal. But good on, I usually don't applaud the Capitals because I'm not a gigantic fan of them, but good on Washington for taking a chance and giving Mike Richards another shot in the National Hockey League, because it's like Vincent LeCavalier. He's not dead, so his career's not over. He deserves another shot, hopefully somewhere. And like I said, good on you, Washington, for doing that.
Yeah, I give big props to Washington.
Now, the last thing we're going to move on to here in this short BLTD Extracast, although this may be a longer topic to discuss because it's a very big move. Two men were traded, 1-for-1. So the deal itself was not too big, but the overall effects of this trade are gigantic.
Uh-huh.
Finally, Finally, the Columbus Blue Jackets pull the trigger, deal forward Ryan Johansson to the Nashville Predators for defenseman Seth Jones. Instant reaction. Tell me what you saw or what you said when you saw this trade.
I think I pointed out on Twitter when I first saw the tweet. I was like, what?
I was actually at Wegmans and I was standing behind somebody, and I looked at my phone and said, "Are you effing serious right now?" And they both turned around and looked at me, and I'm like, "Sorry, my bad, it's hockey." And I kept just standing there, and I was like, "What? Huh? What?"
Yeah, I was just kind of blown away by it because I'm just like, I'm at work and I'm, trying to figure the last stuff out and, for my updates at WGR, and I'm fiddling around on Twitter, and all of a sudden the Blue Jackets posted something like, they acquire Seth Jones in a trade with the Predators for Ryan Johansson. I'm like, I like kind of had to like rub my eyes and look at it again just so I wasn't like dreaming here or something like that. I'm thinking
here's the deal. Here's the deal. I saw the LeCavalier trade and I was like, this is fake. I legitimately thought when I saw that trade, I'm like, this is a fake trade. This is not real. So then I saw that. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I go back, put my phone in my pocket, do a little more shopping, and I'm waiting again. I pull my phone out to check Twitter fast, and then Mike Richards signs with the Capitals. And I'm like, is today like the Twilight Zone? I'm losing my friggin' mind. And this happened in like 5 minutes. And then no joke, 5 minutes later, I do the same exact thing. Boom, Seth Jones is a Blue Jacket. And I'm like, dude, stop. Just stop it. Whatever you're doing, cut it out. This is freaking me out. And I just didn't know I didn't know how to control myself. I mean, because not to mention, like I said before, and this is the 4th podcast I've done for BLTD in the last 24 hours. So this morning, did a hockey one. We talked about Vincent LeCavalier and where he may be able to go for a few minutes. And then we talked with Matthew Collar, which that's going up here in just a few minutes on the internet once this podcast is over. And we asked Matthew Collar about the potential of a Columbus and Nashville trade. He crushed it as usual because he's a good guy. He knows a lot about hockey. He absolutely hit it out of the park. And I guess for the hockey talk, well, he nailed the one-timer. Top shelf. He crushed it. No doubt about it. I don't want to use a baseball reference for hockey. I may get yelled at by someone for doing that. But he did a fantastic job. And then I get home and the trade happens. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Everything we just did today is now old. And it's like time-stamped. It's garbage. I'm so mad. But you know what? That's why I wanted to talk to you tonight, because I always feel weird at this point because we've talked so much about hockey. That it feels weird to me when something big happens in hockey and I don't get your opinion almost instantly for it. So that's why when it happened, I'm like, I need to talk to you tonight. Can you make some time? We have to do this. I want to know what you think.
Yeah, no, I think this deal makes perfect sense for both teams.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Columbus, they really are struggling on the defensive end. Ryan Murray has kind of been just like a drafting acquisition so far. He's been hurt a lot, and it's tough for him because I understand that he was drafted 2nd overall in 2012. He's been drawn comparisons to the play of Scott Niedermayer, and he just hasn't been playing up to it. Now, granted, he doesn't.
Sorry, you cut out there. So for the people who are listening, can you please point out who you were saying he was compared to?
Compared to Scott Niedermayer.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, and he wears 27 for a reason because I guess he molds his game after Niedermayer.
All I heard was his game is modeled after Scott. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's not a hockey player.
No, of course not. But I mean, he was playing with Jack Johnson, and Jack Johnson's not a top pair defenseman by any means, not at all. So now that he has Seth Jones has yet to really mold his game and like develop his game fully. But once he does, I think that the Murray-Jones top pairing will be fantastic. I think they'll both feed off each other very well. Because Murray's more of a two-way guy where Seth Jones, he can play that two-way style, but I see him more as an offensive type of threat than a defensive type of threat. And for Nashville, they don't have a top-line center. Ryan Johansson is developing into a type of player that can be a top-line center for your team. Their top-line center in Nashville was Mike Richards for the longest time. That's not acceptable. So you get a young guy like
Do you mean Mike Ribeiro?
Mike Fisher. Mike Fisher. Did I say? What did I say?
You said Richards, and I thought Ribeiro. You were talking
Jesus.
Fisher.
Jesus, no, not Mike Richards. Wow.
We all strike out on the mics.
I mean, Mike Ribeiro, I'm sure, has spent some time, but a majority of the year, I've seen Mike Fisher, Carrie Underwood's husband, as the top line center, and that's not good. That's not a good top line center to have. And even Mike Ribeiro's okay, but he's not great. Ryan Johansson will be the best top line center that they've had in a long time, probably since David Legwand was in the prime of his career. So, yeah, I think that both trades work out for each other in the best way possible. Because, I mean, Nashville, they're fine on the defensive end. They still have Shea Weber, who's a very good darn hockey player. They also have, Roman Josi, who's developing into a top defenseman in the league. And they've got a couple other guys. I mean, they've got Ekholm back there. They got Ryan Ellis. So I think Nashville's defense is just fine even without Jones, and they get an upgrade, huge upgrade with Johansson at center, who will be their number one guy. And I think that Columbus, they get a number one, number two defenseman to play along with Murray, who is supposed to be a number one or two defenseman, and then you get Jack Johnson off that top pairing. I think the trade works out perfectly for both sides.
First off, it's one of those deals that they say. In baseball, it happens a lot where it's a good deal. It's a good, nice old baseball deal. This one was a nice, old-fashioned hockey deal. Both sides, like you said, Columbus needs defense. Nashville needs offense. So they swap, and because Columbus doesn't have a large amount of offense, but they have enough guys there where they can say, look, we can take a good guy out and replace him for a good defenseman, and vice versa. Now, if you listen to the interview with Matthew Collar, he flat out said, if Nashville gets Johansson, they're going to be very dangerous in the West. They may be able to take that next step because they finally have a guy like Ryan Johansson. So we'll have to see how that works out. I mean, he's a fantastic hockey player. He's struggled this season, and then under John Tortorella, who just loves to destroy people's careers. I mean, I understand you're going to tell me Vinny LeCavalier and Marty St. Louis, blah, 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 whatever. I don't care. John Tortorella loves to pick on someone. Whenever he gets a new job, he finds someone and he just tries to ruin their lives. I don't know what his deal is, but that's just his thing. But, I mean, like you said, it works out for both sides. Columbus will be better because of it. Nashville will be better because of it. At some point in time in the future, though, we're probably going to have to start talking about Nashville, maybe trying to trade Shea Weber to make the most of that before he's not a great defenseman anymore and really old and making a lot of money still. But that's down the road. We'll talk about that one in a few months maybe. But it's fascinating to me that in the day and age where GMs are saying we can't make bad hockey trades, let alone good hockey trades, and then you get a trade like this. I mean, I understand both sides had a
pressing issue.
They had a bevy of what the other team needed, like I said, and it just works out. I mean, I don't understand Columbus at all. They are a very poorly run franchise because for every Brandon Saad and Seth Jones trade they make, they go out and extend Nick Foligno for a boatload of money and go acquire David Clarkson. So, I mean, it's just something where it's like they love being counterproductive. They love to say, look, guys, we're going to make the next step. And then they're going to shoot themselves in the foot and go, I'm not sure why we're bad, but Nick Foligno's our captain for a lot of money. And David Clarkson's playing important minutes.
No, I mean, I don't think the thing is that it's, that Nick Foligno's a bad captain. It's just,
they're asking he's the type of guy. I feel like with Columbus, their problem is that they invest too much in the wrong people. They may say like, hey, look you're going to be our top line winger, but that guy may be like at best a second line winger or something like that. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Oh yeah. No.
They may want too much from the wrong people, which makes them bad in the long run.
Yeah, you're just heavily relying on the wrong type of people. Like when you're relying on Nick Foligno to be a top-line left winger, I don't think Nick Foligno's a top-line left winger. He's a second-line left winger.
Like remember when Steve Ott was in Buffalo and they wanted him to be like the god, and he couldn't be the god because
he couldn't do it.
Hockey.
Yeah, he's not the type of player that can do it.
No.
It's just you got to understand what assets you have. I mean, it's just like you go and trade Ryan O'Reilly. He's the type of player. Okay, Ryan, go play 26 minutes a night. Ryan O'Reilly can go out and play 26 minutes a night effectively. That's utilizing the players and the tools that you have on your team to its maximum potential. Whereas like Nick Foligno, it's like, go play 26 minutes. Oh, I can't do it. Which, I mean, I'm sure Nick Foligno would be like, he wouldn't say, no, I can't do it. But I mean, it's just, he's the type of player that's not capable of doing it.
Sorry, I'm getting yelled at on Twitter again because I know the David Clarkson deal made total sense for Columbus, because Columbus didn't want to pay Nathan Horton to be injured when they can pay David Clarkson to not be injured and play for them. But like, that stop ruining my narrative. This is the point I'm trying to make. They are doing something wrong, obviously, because like they have so much talent on that team and they're going nowhere. And it blows, it absolutely blows my mind.
David Clarkson was, when he was with New Jersey, he was playing on a line with Zach Parise, right? Am I right when I say that he was playing with Zach Parise when he was in New Jersey?
I feel like you're right there.
Yeah, I want to say I'm correct with that. If I'm wrong,
if you think it, you're probably right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he goes into free agency asking for $5 million for a new deal. It's like, dude, you were playing with one of the best players in the NHL. And then he goes to Toronto and just completely craps the bed. And then everybody in Toronto is like, well, where did this go? It's like, yeah, he's not a top line right winger. He's a third or fourth line right winger, maybe second right winger at best if you put him with the right tools. But I mean, to sign him for that type of money and then to expect him to repeat that with nobody else that he can play with is complete just a joke. And then he gets traded to Columbus and he's playing the exact same minutes that he's relied on when he was in Toronto, with not the best talent around him. It's like, you're going to expect to be in trouble with that. You're not utilizing Clarkson the right way. Clarkson's a third or fourth line player. You just got yourself into money with that cap hit, but granted, you did get rid of Horton. It's just, come on, you can't be relying on a guy like him to be your second line right winger, first line right winger, and expect him to produce points. That's not the type of player Clarkson is or really ever was.
Also, our number one fan of the evening, Alec, is pointing out, he's yelling at me on Twitter because he says I'm being stupid. He points out Voracek, Couturier, Gaborik. I mean, you see what those guys are doing right now. Good job, Columbus. Very good job. I mean, I understand you have to deal with these guys to make your team, try to make your team better, but you screwed up a lot, and you continue to screw up a lot. Now, I think I thought the Brandon Saad deal was a smart move. I think this move today is a smart move. I think Ryan Johansson's a fantastic hockey player, but for what they need, for what they being Columbus, what Columbus needs, it's a move they had to make. And I still don't think John Tortorella is the answer, because I don't think John Tortorella ever has been the answer. But I guess this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why you're bashing on Tortorella, just because he has had some really bad,
I just, I don't even hate Tortorella. I just know that I've seen what happens. And
right
after a couple of years, once his shtick runs thin, he's going to be useless. It's happened in New York. It's happened in Vancouver. Yeah. Everywhere he goes, it happens, and it's going to happen in Columbus. And you just hope that it doesn't. Yeah, but I mean, set the franchise back.
The thing about Tortorella is that he's a way, way, way better option than Todd Richards right now. Not only that, but I mean, it was like, who else was out there that could have taken the Columbus job that would be better than Tortorella? I think Tortorella was the best available option for what Columbus had, because I mean, you can't just wait on a guy like Bruce Boudreau to get fired, because he hasn't gotten fired yet. Not only that, but I mean, your team was 0-8 at the time when you fired your head coach, and it just didn't get better from there. Tortorella actually has these guys playing relatively well. So I just, I think that Tortorella was the best option, and, I understand why you're bashing him, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that in a year or two, his time there is going to wear thin. People are going to want him out. People are going to want new guys in. It's just the way of life in the NHL as a head coach.
He really seems like the type of guy that's going to bring them through the muck and be that Ted Nolan for them, where he's going to, grit, heart, compete, all that crap, while they're trying to get Austin Matthews, while they're trying to collect a few high picks to put with Brandon Saad and guys like that.
Right.
Look.
Did I lose you, Ryan? Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's a shame that Ryan's mic died. But yeah, because for those that are listening and those that are trying to figure out what the hell is going on right now, but Ryan Wolfe, his mic died. So I guess I will keep on going here until Ryan gets back. So we were talking about the Ryan Johansson trade and also with John Tortorella with the way that he coaches. But going back to the point with John Tortorella. When he was the coach of the New York Rangers, he got the most out of those guys right away. I mean, he spent good, I think it was like 6-7 seasons with them. And he got the guys on the Rangers to play very well. And then in the end, it just wore thin and it just was time for him to move on. And then, he goes to Vancouver and Vancouver just never worked out for him. And, I think we got Ryan back now.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm on my cell phone because my microphone, I don't know if it became detached or what the deal is, but I'm not even sure which one I'm talking on right now, if it's my phone or if it's my my computer. I'm not even sure.
Well, I was a little confused because I was just like, what the heck's going on here? Like, did I lose you?
It's something where apparently my microphone, my USB port just decided to malfunction, and then my microphone stopped working. So I just grabbed my phone and turned you on my phone, and I guess we can go from there.
Right. Word on.
But good thing to not just quit, because I know it's happened before. You just get off the call and stop talking. But yeah, I think Columbus is not what you want. Excuse me, you don't want your franchise to be like Columbus. They've certainly made some poor trades, maybe overvalued some other players, some other teams that have come over and not been as good as they wanted them to be.
Right.
Which is for sure. But, I mean, that's what happens when you put not smart people in powerful positions. So maybe they'll get it together at some point in time in the future, but, I mean, this Seth Jones trade certainly seems like a step in the right direction. Again, like I said, I wouldn't trade Ryan Johansson, but if you're dealing from a position of power where you can get a guy like Seth Jones, not a bad day at the office.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I completely agree.
Now, the question I have for you before we go, when do you think the Sabres will make a trade?
I don't know. I mean,
and this is just a total shot in the dark. I'm just asking you because now that the stove is kind of heated up a little, it can be time to have some fun,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think that they're necessarily going to make a deal too soon.
Like I said before, it's good to know that Tim Murray is out there trying to do some work, trying to make this team better, even if it's an addition by subtraction move like a Josh Georges deal where Georges moves on to a franchise where he can help them and maybe Buffalo gets a better look at someone now. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who that guy would be. Or maybe Murray has a deal in place or a thought of a deal in place where he can go on and move to a specific guy and say, look, we're gonna trade Josh Georges, but we're gonna make a trade right after for player X, who's gonna come in our lineup and play 17, 18 minutes a night. We'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah. No. And I don't know when Tim exactly is going to make a trade. I love trades. I want trades to happen. I think trades are fun.
I think we all do.
I think, tweets from Darren Dreger and Bob McKenzie and Pierre LeBrun and all those guys, and when you see them, it kind of just makes you, it makes you excited inside, makes you like, oh boy, there's something happening. This is so exciting. It's like get your popcorn ready action for Twitter.
Yeah,
So,
your heart skips a beat. You're ready to go. Hey, who's my favorite team getting now? And
yeah,
I mean, we've
exactly.
got, I think, like 7.5 weeks left until the deadline. So things are going to heat up. And I mean, we'll be at the arena. I mean, I figured out that I may have to go to the arena for the day and then go back to work for 2 hours. But
Well, that sucks.
It is what it is. Hey, I don't care. My job, 2 hours at my job is simple.
Right.
Just yell at some old people for being stupid and then go home.
Yeah, and with working at WGR, working with Matthew Collar, and by the way, I wanted to say Matthew Collar's a pleasure to work with, and I like talking to him of hockey all the time. But
I called him a nerd earlier on the podcast earlier.
Oh well, he can be a nerd sometimes. But.
It was a nice way to say it though. I was trying to explain something to him, and I said like when people call you nerds, and he was like, no, I get that.
No, yeah, no, I understand. But
we were talking. We started the podcast, and we went on like this 10-minute tangent about Twitter and how to use Twitter and how people are stupid on Twitter, and it just got totally out of hand. But it was really good.
Oh yeah, it's always fun talking to Collar. But
you can check that out here in just a few, once my computer works. You can check that out over at BLTDsports.com. But right now, my computer does not want to cooperate.
Well, I mean, you probably put it to too much use. It needs a break. Sometimes technology just is like trying to tell you, hey, give me a break here, yo.
Yeah, I don't have time for that right now, though. It needs to not need a break. Don't mind me just being a pain in the ass. My computer may spontaneously combust this evening. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. But I guess this is no better time than now to wrap this guy up. BLTD Extracast number 11. I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD on Twitter. Brayton at BJ Wilson WGR on Twitter. Brayton, before we go, is there anything else you want to add to this magnificent podcast that we've had this evening?
No, the only thing that I'll ask you is when are we going to do the redraft for 2004?
Whenever you want to. Just let me know and I'll do my portion of it.
All right. Well, I think I'm ready to go, and I'll just wait on you then.
Okay, then I'll get working on it.
Roger that.
Sounds good. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Follow us at BLTD Sports. Check out BLTDsports.com. A lot of stuff going up in the next couple of days. Sabres play again on Sunday. They play the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg, so I'm sure that'll be a tire fire of excitement because you've got Evander Kane coming back to Winnipeg. You've got Zach Bogosian coming back to Winnipeg. You're facing Tyler Myers and Drew Stafford and Joel Armia. It's
Evander Kane a nice video tribute and Zach Bogosian a nice video tribute.
They'll probably give Bogosian a tribute. They probably won't do shit for Evander Kane.
Probably not. They'll probably take photos of his tracksuit.
Maybe someone will throw a tracksuit on the ice like they throw the octopus in Detroit. Someone will just throw a wet tracksuit on the ice. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be something else. But maybe it would be Dustin Byfuglien in like pregame warm-ups. He goes out there on the ice with a tracksuit and throws it over on the Sabres end.
I'd love to see what happens with if Kane goes after Byfuglien or something like that, because that's going to be a lot of fun.
I wouldn't think so, but
he may have if he can finish a check, I'm sure he will make sure to finish that check.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm sure that he's going to let Byfuglien know, hey buddy, I'm here.
Exactly. Hey, dickhead.
Let's talk. Let's get our old problems out of the way here.
Let's talk this out with some fists, and I'll hit you in the face a couple times or something.
Right.
But like I said, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We certainly appreciate it. We'll be back sometime soon, talk more hockey. The next thing we probably do will most likely be the redraft, so keep an eye out for that. over at bltdsports.com. But thanks again for tuning in, guys. Have a wonderful night.
Peace.